It's been more than a year since Wisconsin legalized cannabis oil for treating kids with seizures. Governor Walker signed a law in April of 2014 allowing the use of marijuana, a marijuana derivative. However, our investigation found the law is not helping patients. News 8's Mike Thompson joins us now with a look into why that is.
Martha, records filed with the state's Controlled Substances Board show that since that law was passed early last year, no doctors in Wisconsin have prescribed cannabidiol or CBD to their patients for the treatment of seizures. Well, why? Because an amendment added to that bill to get it passed requires physicians to first apply for and then carry out an investigational drug trial with the FDA. It's a lengthy, rigorous, and expensive process that many doctors just aren't willing to do. And it's something the Falk family of Sparta wasn't willing to wait for. 6-year-old Danny Falk and his twin sister Olivia have a special kind of bond. It's a bond that's in part born out of a tough entrance into this world. They came at just 24 weeks.
Just at any point, you don't know if you're going to bring your babies home.
Danny and Olivia each weighed in at a little more than a pound and suffered many complications in their first few months of life.
It was a roller coaster, that's for sure. But we made it through.
But the roller coaster ride wasn't over just yet for the Falks.
Just have fun.
In fact, it was really just beginning.
Danny had his first seizure that we know of for sure when he was 1 year old. All of a sudden started jerking, his lips started turning blue, his face started losing color. It was pretty terrifying. You don't know what's going on.
It was a few months later before they got the official diagnosis. Danny had epilepsy.
Danny.
This is video of one of his seizures. The blank stare and eyes rolled back in his head, the telltale signs.
Sometimes he'd just have 1 a day, 2 a day. Sometimes he'd go a couple days without them. Most recently, he had up to 24 a day.
When Danny turned 4 years old, he started to regress in nearly every aspect of his life. And by the time he was 5.5, it was to the point where he couldn't do anything by himself.
He would lay on the floor and not interact with us at all. He had no interest in toys. He was completely blank. His face was, wouldn't smile.
It got so bad he lost the ability to swallow and chew. Doctors had to put a tube in his stomach to feed him.
He had no quality of life, and it's awful to watch your kid just regress so much.
In kids with epilepsy, about 20% of those children will have seizures that are not easily controlled with medication, and unfortunately Danny falls in that group.
Kim says they tried medication after medication, special diets, chiropractic care, but they were watching their son slowly slip away.
You just feel completely helpless. You just want to help your kid. You want to have so much hope for your child, but you know, at one point it's like you're almost losing hope, and it's an awful feeling. Running
out of options, Kim started researching medical marijuana.
All I've ever been told is, you know, marijuana's bad, you know. I'd never heard anything good about it. It's something that I knew we needed to try.
After many conversations and support from Danny's pediatrician in Onalaska and his neurologist at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Kim, her mother, and Danny packed up the minivan and headed to the one place where medical marijuana was easily accessible, Colorado.
Not everything was completely planned out before we went, but we just kind of had to jump and hope and pray that everything would be okay when we got there. It was kind of a last chance. We've got to do something for our son.
The decision to move to Colorado wasn't an easy one. Kim's husband, Nick, and Danny's twin sister, Olivia, stayed behind in Sparta, and there was no promise the medical cannabis was even going to help Danny's condition.
We were praying that he'd be like the other people you hear about, that they take one dose and they don't have seizures that day. But that's not what Danny was.
The first few months in Colorado were rough. Danny's seizures actually got more frequent with the medical cannabis, but doctors told them to wait it out before they gave up.
We stuck with it, It was awful. But all of a sudden he started sitting up though. His seizures got worse, but he started sitting up again on his own. And then all of a sudden he only had, 10 seizures one day, and then 7. And eventually he had, a couple a day, and then all of a sudden he didn't have any more.
I was a bit surprised to see how well he responded, and very pleasantly surprised. I've certainly had kids in my practice who have also tried medical marijuana with nowhere near benefits. Some it hasn't helped at all. Medical cannabis is a drug, and it's similar to the other drugs that we used, and it needs to be looked at in a more rigorous fashion like we do for other drugs that we use. So it clearly has potentially, I think, promise, but it needs to be looked at more rigorously.
After 3 months in Colorado, Kim knew they couldn't stay. It was just too hard being apart from the rest of their family. But as it turns out, Minnesota had just passed a medical cannabis law of its own.
We started seriously looking at Minnesota and decided that if we can't stay in Wisconsin with his medication, we had to move to Minnesota.
Is that your dog, Danny?
Since June, the Falks have been living in Rochester, together again as a family. Danny now gets his medical cannabis from one of 3 dispensaries in the state of Minnesota, one being in Rochester. He's given the medicine at home 3 times a day.
His is an oil, actually. We draw it up in a syringe, and it goes through his tube in his stomach. What Daniel has, there's very little THC in it, which is the part that gets a person high. So he's not getting high off of it. It's just helping his brain relax.
All right.
Danny is still on an uphill climb, but he's making progress almost every day.
It's so amazingly different. I had a child that laid on the floor and did nothing at one point, to the point where he's smiling and loving his dog again.
Is that your dog?
I'm not completely unrealistic. Danny's seizures will affect him forever. He is not cured, but he actually has quality of life. He's happy again.
2 years ago, Kim was among those with a negative perception of marijuana. Now she considers herself an advocate and hopes others get educated too.
I'm going to do what I can to get word out there that marijuana and the cannabis plant is not this evil thing we've all been taught it is. There is huge benefits to it.
Now, both Gunderson and Mayo Clinic health systems here in La Crosse released statements to us regarding medical marijuana, and you can find those on our website coming up here. And Kim hopes Wisconsin can pass a workable law here soon. She says they almost feel like they're being held hostage in Minnesota because they can't leave even to Wisconsin, even though Wisconsin has a law, because Minnesota's cannabis has THC, which is the part that gets you high. Wisconsin's doesn't, so they could be federally prosecuted if they leave the state with that medicine.
Yeah, the Falk family definitely an example of, first of all, what a turnaround a child can make using that medicine, but also to have to pick up and leave your hometown, your family, your doctors that you know. How difficult for a family to have to do all that.
Very difficult, and it's important to note, we didn't note this in the story though, it doesn't work for everyone. This Danny is a case where it did work for him, but there's other people, as you heard the doctor say, that she's had people in her practice that it hasn't worked at all for them.
All right. Hey, thanks very much, Mike, for that story tonight.